Dear God, surround me as I speak.
Our story begins in 1994. A pastor from Palatka, Florida, was driving through the small town of Palm Coast. He knew that there were many people from up north relocating to this city and that there were not enough churches in the area reaching out to these new families. This, he thought, would have to change.
Thousands of homes, thousands of people, and I told my wife, I said, this is a sin. And I went home, told her, I said, we need to do something to start a church here.
At the time, Pastor Danny Williams had no way of knowing that Flagler County, which is home to Palm Coast, would become the fastest growing county in our nation. But God knew it. Pastor Williams and the congregation at Peniel Baptist Church began praying that God would move hearts and minds to begin a church in Palm Coast. The Florida Baptist Convention agreed with Pastor Williams and quickly moved to help establish a new church that would use a fresh approach to help people connect with Christ.
And we moved down here to start a church of a type that I had never attended before. I'd never been in a service that did anything extremely non-traditional. And so when we moved down here, we started asking around for any churches anywhere who were doing things in a non-traditional manner. And we spent our first 4 or 5 months driving around Florida visiting all the churches that we could find that were doing things non-traditionally.
$10,000 in seed money was then donated by Janice Browning, a recent widow who, in her own words, felt compelled to put her money where her heart was. Danny Williams contacted John Shepard, who in turn contacted Billy White about the possibility of starting a church together in Palm Coast.
Well, little did Danny know that that phone call was really the culmination of my wife and I, and of course Billy and Kim's prayers for 3 years. Because I'd been out of seminary that long and just praying almost every day as I'm serving on staff at this church in Mississippi. God, give me an opportunity to start a church somewhere that will impact lostness forever. So when Danny called, I mean, there was no doubt that this was from God.
John, a rocket scientist, and Billy, a saddle maker, had both given their lives to Christ many years before, but neither had ever pastored a church, let alone started one.
Rain, rain on my face. Hasn't stopped raining for days.
We were encouraged by our friends and our family to take that leap of faith and start the church, start Palm Coast Community Church.
Billy and John faithfully followed their hearts to begin their mission in Palm Coast.
And my philosophy was, we'll go down there. If I have to work, if this doesn't work out and we just have to start working, that's what I'll have to do. But I want to try that. And my wife was fully behind that and said, look, let's go down there, try it, give it our best shot, and see if this is what God's wired us for.
After establishing a core group of people devoted to launching Palm Coast Community Church, ads were run promoting the first service, which would be held in one of the local elementary schools.
And I can still remember that first Sunday morning when we went public. And about 10 minutes before the service was supposed to start, there wasn't anybody here but just our families and the folks that had come over to help us from Peniel Baptist Church in Palatka, Florida. And I can remember us just saying, God, in the next 10 minutes, if nobody comes, we still feel like you've called us here. So we walk out that door a few minutes before 9:30, and there were 205 people at the first service.
Services were informal. Music was upbeat. Dramas and multimedia presentations were incorporated. Messages were designed for real people in a real world who were desiring to connect with a real God.
Over the mountains and the sea, your river runs with love for me, and I will.
Soon after, Tony Putnam was brought on board to start Crosspoint, a program geared to reach teenagers in Palm Coast.
When Billy White called Carrie and I in 1997 and asked us to consider moving to Palm Coast, Florida to start a student ministry, it started us on a journey of faith, us being my wife Carrie and I. And it really forced us to trust God in a way that we hadn't in a while. At the time, Palm Coast Community Church had zero money in the budget to support us, and we were leaving a position in Alabama, and the people in Palm Coast said, well, how much do you get paid? And we told them, they said, well, we'll be glad to match that as long as the money comes in. And you know what? We have never missed a paycheck. God has always met our needs. He's always provided for us.
Discoveryland, the children's ministry, also continued to thrive under the guidance of Mary Benvenuto.
We want Discoveryland to be the very best hour of every kid's week.
As our church grew, so did the number of small groups, and Trent Shockey, a pastor to oversee that ministry, joined our family.
When someone steps into one of our small groups, we want 4 things for them. First thing is we want them prayed for. Second is we want them prayed with. Third is we want them loved. And the fourth is we want them discipled.
As God blessed the church, and it continued to thrive, there was an increasing need to have a permanent structure to better fulfill the needs of our fast-growing congregation and community.
The hurricanes came through Florida in 2004, destroyed our office complex, and we didn't have any offices left for our church.
A building became available, which would be perfectly suited to meet all our needs. However, there were many odds against getting into this particular building.
Another thing that I think of when I think of obstacles is all the government hoops that we had to jump through. Would the city even approve to rezone this property so that we could meet there? And we walked into city council meetings, and we had other government meetings that we had to go into, knowing that at any moment any one person could stop the process.
As our church family prayed for guidance and support, more and more obstacles, which at first seemed insurmountable, were defeated.
Praise you in the morning, praise you in the evening, praise you when I'm young and when I'm old.